special guest is Emma Atkin from Minors Brady. Emma, if you just say, well, hello to you and welcome, first of all. So hello.
Thanks for having me.
But if you just quickly, for anyone who doesn't know your company, if you just tell us a little bit about where you're based, how many branches, size of the company. Just tell us a little bit about that, really, please, Emma.
So I'm from Minors Brady, and we have 5 offices at the moment. So we're based in Wroxham, Norwich, Dereham, Caister and Lowestoft, so across Norfolk and Suffolk, 67 staff in total. So there's a lot of us and growing. And I've been there now for just over 5 years. And yeah, as a company, we just had our 8th birthday recently as well.
And you've grown quickly then. In 8 years, you have 5 branches. So well done. Well done. So Emma, you're a very important person in your company because you're the head of sales progression. All right. Okay. So how did you get to that job? What was your route to that role?
I didn't start out in agency. I started out working in conveyancing as well. Okay. I had thought about going to uni, didn't end up going, and started a job at a law firm in Norwich. Kind of worked my way up from there, really. Just worked through a new business team, so helping set up initial files, and then got put into a team actually learning the conveyancing. So started doing admin and kind of all the way through to doing contract approvals, exchanges, etc. So that was good, but I kind of got to the point where it was time to either do my exams and become qualified or not, and I kind of thought, no, I don't actually think I want to do this forever. So I looked at what I liked, what I didn't like, and I thought, you know what, I think agency might be right, and kind of made the jump.
So did you go straight into sales progression then as an agency?
No, so initially when I started, I did a bit of a mixture. So we were a bit of a smaller company then at the time. I mean, when I joined, there was 12 or 14 of us. So I joined the team. I did some viewings, and then I helped out doing the initial calls with aftersales. So just really introducing clients to the process, explaining that, and letting them know how we work, because not all agencies, believe it or not, have a sales team, which I think is crazy, but that's true. And kind of went from there, really, working into then full-time doing after sales, and then running the team, and team getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, well done. So how many people in your team at the moment? And you mentioned a team.
My team at the moment.
We missed that. Sorry, just say that again.
Oh, so I've got 7 in my team.
7 in your team.
Yeah.
Okay, amazing. Okay, great. Yeah. Well, that's really good, isn't it? So you did it the other way around to me, because I was an agent first and I became a lawyer. So there you go. We've both seen all aspects of it.
Both sides, yeah.
Both sides. So I've got a few questions to ask you. So you tell me about the background to you get into your job, and well done. And you've done it all very quickly. So what's your biggest problem at the moment? What's your biggest problems at the moment, do you think, as an industry? What are we suffering from as estate agents?
Struggle with kind of solicitor and agent relationships. That probably doesn't come as a surprise, but it doesn't really make sense if we're all working towards the same goal. But I think it's kind of stemmed from a very long time, and perhaps when sales progression wasn't as sort of well known, the sales chasing would be done a bit more aggressively, shall we say, and perhaps not with the knowledge that is needed to be able to kind of work together and get things done. So I think, unfortunately, that's where it stemmed from, but we know that doesn't really work, so we like to be a bit different.
So the national average to get to completion is about over 5 months. So do you find that with sales progression it's actually improved that? You got better than national average to get to completion?
It's much nicer for the clients as well. So not only do we help them speed up the process, but it's a much nicer experience, because it can be so confusing. I mean, as you then know, legal jargon left, right and centre. It can get very confusing, and it can become very sort of one against the other. If they're kind of batting inquiries back and forth, it can seem like it is that everyone working against each other, when really everyone's trying to work together.
You mean the lawyers seem to be combating each other rather than trying to find solutions? They just seem to be having to go at each other. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, and I think that can sometimes then be fed back to the clients in that way, and they end up getting frustrated at each other, when bottom line is they want to sell, seller wants to sell, buyer wants to buy. And quite often what the solicitors and lawyers might be arguing about, they really have no interest in at all. And sometimes you have to have those things, as obviously inquiries that are a must, and mortgage lenders need them, etc. But other times it can get quite heightened when it doesn't necessarily need to be, I think.
Well, this is property Bants and Rants, and it is really frustrating. You're absolutely right. I mean, that is
Yeah.
terrible. And obviously, I'm a conveyancer, solicitor, and I just see that all the time. That with just you got some really, it's like an agency. You got some amazing agents, you got some not very good agents, and then law, you got some amazing conveyancers, you got some not very good conveyancers. But it amazes me when you get them on the other side how argumentative they are on something that there's never going to be a solution they both agree on. And one of the things I know that you're really hot on is just finding practical solutions, because if someone's asking for it, well, you might as well just get on and deal with it, because there's no way you're going to convince the other side that they're not going to be happy. So you picked on something really good, and you said that the way of speaking to lawyers is kind of a little bit different. You've got different approach. So what do you think the best tactic is to get the best out of the lawyers that you're chasing?
Make it clear that we are being understanding. I think, unfortunately, because of, as I said before, how previous chasing has sometimes been, they kind of get the impression it's kind of they'll find out something. And I used to see the same when I worked in conveyancing. You'd have the agent on the phone, you'd give them an update, you'd have your client on the phone 2 minutes later saying something completely different. It just stirs the pot massively. So we like to be very specific. We like to know exactly what it is that is outstanding. We like to build good relationships with the solicitors that we come across, and sort of make sure that they know that we are there to help them. We're not asking that stuff to ring the client and tell them to then get on the phone to them. We're asking because actually you might say that you need us to ring up the council, or you need us to ring up, Target's a big one at the minute with the Help to Buy. We can sit there and do the legwork, or help explain to a client how to get duplicate certificates and things like that. Because at the end of the day, a conveyancer doesn't need or want to be sat there and hold for hours. They can be doing far more other productive things, and they're things that we can help with.
So you've actually got a very proactive approach, and because say I was an agent beforehand, so I've seen it from both sides. And as an agent, it sounds like you do the same. I would just do whatever I needed to get that case through. So sometimes you got some great agents who are, because we should be working as a team, shouldn't we? The lawyers and the agents should be collaborating.
100%. Yeah.
And you do get the problems where the lawyers don't want to collaborate, but also we do come across lots of agents where sometimes we call them and say, look, can you help on this, to get the case through? And they're like, no, and
or they don't know how to do it, and it just
they don't know how to do it. Yeah, they don't know how to do it. So you've got your background gave you that knowledge, but when you get new people on, what do you do to train them? How's that starting process work? Because they haven't got that knowledge that you've got.
Training with the team before they kind of get hold of their own cases. They'll shadow a person. We try and teach them. Obviously, the process is not so in depth, because at the end of the day, we aren't there to advise. It's not our place to advise on things, but just so they have an understanding. Because, and again, when I was on the other side, I find it so frustrating. An agent would ring, you give them the update, they don't understand a clue of what you're saying, and it doesn't then go anywhere. So, and again, occasionally then the team will have an update, and if it is a bit more complicated, they'll ring me and say, well, what is this in English, please? Or what do we mean? And there are certain then solicitors that we can say, look, can you put this in our terms, please, if need be. So we try and make sure that they always understand what's happening in the process, rather than just message passing on. And they understand that, look, this happened and then this happens. But obviously sometimes it can be a little bit, it's not always in the same order as it with conveyancing.
It sounds like you're crucial, really. Sales progression role is crucial to get the job through. So, but it sounds like your business invested in you quite early in their career, didn't it? So, but some agents haven't got that facility, and the negs are doing that themselves. So it's quite tough, isn't it?
And it was, I think initially as well, we laugh about it now, because when I started, they thought, well, you don't really know what to expect from someone working in conveyancing to come to agency. But it's it's turned out well.
Yeah, good. So for people that haven't got that resource, they haven't got the sales progression team as such, what is any tips that you would give them as to how they should try to help? What's the main things that they should be helping on? If you had to chase 3 things, when would you get involved, do you think? What should they be asking about
for a client?
Let's do for a client, and then let's do for, if you don't mind, if you've got some tips. The tips from Emma. This is going to go down in history. Write these down, guys. Write these down. It's come from Emma.
You've heard it from here first.
Yeah. So first of all, from a client, what's the 3 things that, if they haven't got that capacity to do it, and I know you guys do a great job, and I know you keep them fully on board, and that's why you got great reviews. But for people that haven't got time, the facility that you got, what's the 3 things that you would get a client must do, that you must chase first of all, and then we'll say what's the things you must get a lawyer to do. So what's the 3 things for a client?
To be really early on prepared to check for all paperwork. You'll get obviously your pack, your welcome pack to start with, and all the initial paperwork, including things like the property information form and the fixtures and fittings. Now, in the property information form, obviously you can only answer what you know. Sometimes you don't know, but there's so many parts where there's information for documents. Now, people then will sometimes tick them, send it back, and forget about the documents. So digging out all that old paperwork is a good thing to start with as well. So get your paperwork back, send it all in so the solicitor can start, but then do not forget to look for the actual documents, because they will still come back and ask for them. So make sure you get them together. You don't have to hold things back by then not sending the paperwork back straight away. Get things going, but just make sure you're looking for that in the background.
Right. So number 1, I just want to summarise, because that's music to my ears. I love that. So as a lawyer, you'd love that. That's the sort of thing that you love, because I mean, I'm going to just say we do chase our clients to return the paperwork, but I think sometimes because conveyancing takes too long, and the time is lost through things like that, where the client doesn't realise how important they are. The lawyers don't chase for that information back, so quite often you can save at least a couple of weeks just by saying what you said, Emma. Just return the forms and just add the stuff you're supposed to add. And I love what you said. And when you said, you don't know the answers. If you don't know, just say I don't know. But and another magic thing that you said is, just return them anyway. Don't wait, because a lot of the time they are just holding on, thinking I'll get that information, but they don't really get it. If they haven't got it, they're not going to get it really. So
I have to go back to your old solicitor or re-request another bit of paperwork. So yeah, just get it back. Everyone can crack on, and we'll sort the rest in between.
I love it. So number 1 tip, that's already going in my diary. Number 1 tip from Emma. Did you have a second tip, Emma, for someone? So you're chasing your clients. What would you do? So that's number 1, was get the paperwork in early, return it, and add everything on there. What was number 2?
As well, if you haven't got an agent that's explaining how things are going, just make sure you have a bit of an idea about how the process goes, because you want to make sure you're thinking, yes, I've done this, yes, I've done that. And as soon as you have something come in, just don't sit on it, just get it back and check. And if you get something through and it can look so daunting sometimes, just ask. If you're lucky enough to have an agent that can help, then ask them, and if not, just ask your conveyancer, because at the end of the day, no matter what scale they are on, they're going to want to get it done as well. So 9 times out of 10, they will help you and they will go through it.
I suppose going on to that, maybe your third tip is get a conveyancer that actually is solution based and wants to get the transaction through.
Yeah. Check your reviews before you instruct anyone. Yeah.
So do you? So I imagine that's one of your things that you focus on, is to make sure that you get the right people on board. Obviously, it's illegal to say to people you can't buy this property unless you've got this conveyancer. But But if you really believe in the lawyer that you use, I suppose your team actually spends some time saying these people are going to look after you. They've got the same mindset as us. They want to get it through. Is that what you guys focus on as well?
Yeah, we always offer a recommendation. Some people have already got solicitors that they work with closely if they do multiple transactions, and obviously that's fine. People are welcome to do their own research, but we do offer them a recommendation if they'd like it, because at the end of the day, it's people we work with on a daily basis, and we know how people work. And
you got the advantage of being able to speak to them as well, which is sometimes difficult, isn't it? Is that right?
Yeah, it can be, unfortunately, but a lot of people are a lot more willing nowadays, but it's not always that way, but it definitely helps.
Okay, right, fantastic. So that's good. So that's the tips with the client. Okay, so and what about any tips you would give to an agent who may not have an expert like you looking after them? What tips would you give a negotiator who's actually looking after their own sales progression? What things would you say that this is the time to be chasing the lawyers?
Well, then if they know that their clients have returned paperwork, it's making sure that the contracts go out in good time, making sure that the things that are going to take a while are done. So if they're getting mortgage valuations done, make sure that searches are requested. If you've got to have searches, make sure that inquiries are raised early on, because again, and this is probably not so much nowadays, but before, some conveyancers wouldn't raise inquiries until searches came back. Whereas if you have questions that take a while to get sorted, they can be done in the interim, which in all fairness, most people do now, which is great. And I think that makes a real difference.
Okay. So again, it's the same sort of thing, isn't it? As an agent, and you worked in conveyancing, so you know what it's like. As an agent, it feels like it goes on forever, and sometimes you feel like you've got no control over anything. But it's those simple things that lose weeks and sometimes months, because, I say, paying for the searches, generally speaking, lawyers are not that proactive in chasing for. They send out the request to the client and kind of almost leave it. Well, it's the client. This is the client to do. Not everyone's like that. Don't get me wrong. I'm generalising, but I've come across that far too often. They kind of leave it to the client. So just a little tip, like calling your client and saying, if you pay for your searches, actually, it's really easy and actually save you weeks and if not months.
Is the conveyancers doing it as well? Because again, that's not something they need to do. A conveyancer can be getting on with other things that they're trained to do and spend all those hours training to do, rather than ringing up someone saying, please, can you pay for your searches? So
Yeah.
that's it
So
saves them time as well.
So what you said there is really interesting, because I had the same philosophy in that agents work really hard and lawyers work really hard. Okay. So, and sometimes we would say exactly what you said, Emma, that, use the lawyers to get the stuff through. So we would want that. It's like you've got someone who's a good admin person, you want them doing admin. If someone's a great salesperson, you want them doing sales. Someone's a great valuer, you want to do valuations. And it's the same with the lawyers. If you got that great relationship, they should be part of your team, really, and you're just using them to get the exchanges done.
Let them concentrate on what they're trained to do, and we can run around, do the legwork as well. So yeah, they're stacked with everything that they've got to do. They don't need to be bogged down by things that aren't necessary and that we can help with. So
yeah, that's right, and that's the collaboration that we need between the lawyers and the estate agents. So what's the what do you do? You obviously help the lawyers, but I can see the people. So lawyers must want to speak to you if you're doing it in such a nice way. But I imagine you've never spoken to a rude lawyer ever.
that was true, but unfortunately not. But yeah, it is what it is.
So if you really can't if you're not getting anywhere with a lawyer, have you got any tips for anyone like that? 'Cause sometimes it happens, just not getting anywhere. What would you do in that sort of situation?
Sometimes then we have to sort of say to the client, look, it's going to be more for them to speak to them, because they are obviously going to give their client an update, and just explain if they can get the update if the client's not sure what to do next, or then needs us to follow up on it, then to let us know, and we can then follow up from there. But obviously they're going to update, well, then normally we'd update their client, so that's fair enough.
I think it's a very good tip, because what I'm saying is you do a good job by getting involved with the lawyer, but sometimes they just won't speak to you. And I had that that's one of our frustrations why we ended up qualifying as solicitors, because we weren't getting a service from the agents that we were working with. They're causing us, deals are falling through for no reason. So yeah, ultimately you have to be speaking to your client. So that's a really good tip. I like that. That's going to go in everyone's book. Write it down, what Emma
That's
said.
another tip there.
That's what, write it down, what Emma said. So, what sort of things have you learned, though? I ask people about their mindset. What sort of principles do you sometimes apply to fit this? You've done really well, and you've got to your position when you have. What sort of mindset tips have got you in that position, do you think?
Even when you think there might not be a solution, there is. We say at work, good people always find a way, and there is always some kind of solution. And sometimes actually what you think is the problem might not be the problem. So it's really getting to the root of what is the concern for the client. They might think that as a whole, this is the problem, but when you find out what's causing the actual bit of stress or the issue for them, there might be another way around it that you wouldn't have even thought about if you hadn't sort of looked into it a bit deeper. So that's why we try and have really good relationships, so that we can try and fully understand what everyone needs and help them then. And yeah, more often than not, there is some kind of solution.
Yes, it's about asking the right questions and drilling down to really understand what the real problem is. Because sometimes, I think the other thing you said was really good is, sometimes the lawyers are knocking heads and they don't always explain it the right way to the clients, and that's why the agent is like that kind of glue that holds the transaction together. Because sometimes you need to depersonalize it with the client and say, look, that's just the way lawyers speak, and they do speak like that, so they're not, and the clients are not really upset with each other, but all it needs is for that lawyer to say, you know what, they won't pay for the indemnity insurance. I don't think they should pay for it. Why are you paying for it? And
Yeah.
sometimes indemnity insurance is £200 and they're buying for £500,000. But if it's portrayed like that to the client's thinking, well, my lawyer's looking after me, but that's not got the real end objective in mind, is it?
And I think sometimes because naturally conveyancing you have to be a bit more formal, whereas we don't have to be so formal, that sometimes it can come across in a bit more of a formal or aggressive way, and it's not the fact at all. And actually sometimes you have a vendor on the phone that's quite upset with some of the questions that have come through, and
Yeah.
the buyer's got no idea that's even been asked. And sometimes as well at the time of negotiating, that there might be something that's come up that they've said that they're not worried about, and obviously so long as your mortgage lender's happy, and so long as they sign what they need to, sometimes it can then cause upset because they think, oh, we've already spoken about this, why is it coming up now? But that's solicitor or conveyancer doing their job and making sure they've checked it and they've told their client what they need to, and it's not that the buyers then change their mind, and sometimes that just causes a bit of friction. So yeah, you end up being a bit of a mediator sometimes, just explaining that no, this is the process, it has to be done, it's for your protection, and then trying to find a way around it, really.
So you raised a good point, and I just want to almost finish now. So we're almost, but you raised a really good point. I'd like you to just explain so everyone can understand it. So you said providing the mortgage lender's happy, and I think what you get into is that there's lawyers have got requirements imposed on them by the mortgage lenders, and the way you said it was right, because the lawyers have got no discretion at all to not do what the lender wants. Yeah. So one of the tips that I learned as an estate agent, and I can see is there's no point trying to convince the lawyer not to do something that the lender wants, because it's just not going to happen.
No choice,
you're just wasting your time. It's the same with saying if you say to the lawyer, don't worry about AML. Don't worry about it. It's just you're never going to win on that. You're never going to win on that.
It kind of links in a bit with something else that we focus on quite a bit, actually. We always say control the controllables. Some things simply cannot be helped, and there's things like that when you have to have something for a mortgage lender. If they have to report something, you are stuck in a queue with a mortgage company with whatever turnaround times they are. All you can do then is speak to the broker. If they can chase up with whatever business development manager they've got, if you've done all of those things, it's you're not just then putting on the back burner, but if you've done those things, you've done what you can, and that's that.
Emma, you're so wise. You're so wise. I love that. Another tip. This is going on a bit longer than our normal podcast. It's so wise. You're going to help a lot of people. So again, the tip you just said, which is perfect, is one of the things that the lawyers have to do is they sometimes get questions from the lender, and they then have to send it to the lender, and to hear back from that takes a long time. And what you said was brilliant, right? Because although as an agent, I thought this mistakenly, but I thought, well, the lawyers have referred it, so the lawyers should chase it, right? But and I know, the lawyer's got no power over the lender. They can't really speed anything up. It takes ages to be holding on the phone, and you don't get a result. And what you said is the golden ticket. I think that's the value bomb for today, right? That's it. If there's a lender, if they're waiting to hear back from a lender, the best people to chase that is the broker and the client, because they're going to get so much further than the lawyers are going to get. And honestly, I'll give you an example. When I bought my house, I had something that there's a company we had to refer to the lender. Okay, I phoned as the client. Okay, and I phoned as the lawyer. Okay, one of the guys, because you're not allowed to do your own conveyances. So one of my lawyers sat next to me. They called the lender and said it's 14-day turnaround. Okay, and it was about to fall through. Okay, so they got off the phone. I picked up the same phone. I called the lender as the client. I said, look, unless this was going to fall through, unless I get an answer this afternoon, I'm not going to use you. And I would have gone on social media, because the way that it was really disgusting the way they did it. So I wouldn't moan for if it was nothing that needed moan about, but they really treated me really badly. And I had a reply within 30 minutes. So that's the way to get results, really, is to actually get the client involved and get the broker involved. But but as you've explained it, the client would get that. We've come across some agents where we're recommended. So we recommend that as a firm. because that's the fastest solution, and that's what we're here for, to find solutions. When we said to some agents, because they don't get it, they give kickback and say you should be chasing it, but it doesn't get anywhere.
No, it's more helpful when they can do it. And again, it's another half hour and a half that you can spend doing other things.
So what you're saying is use your conveyancer properly. That's what you're saying. Use them to get the cases through. Now, one final question, but this has been really so informative, Emma. This is really, really good. So if you're a wise person, I can tell now, I can tell by this conversation you're a very wise person. So what's something that you own that costs you less than £100, but you would definitely recommend to someone? Say, look, you know what, you're going to go and get this. It's less than £100, but really it'll make a massive difference to you. Go on. What would you say?
That's a very tricky one. Probably for me, maybe a bit different. Okay, if it has to be an item, I would say probably
Could be anything.
books, because I think there's different types of books. I read a lot at the minute. Either if it's to relax, if it's something I just can't put down. Obviously quite a lot of books you can learn a lot from, mindset books, etc.
You got a book you recommend? You got a book you recommend?
I read before the Indistractable. That's actually really good. About how much we don't realise things like our phones and other things distract us, and things then take us a lot more time. Really into Peter Swanson at the minute. They're kind of more crime thrillers with a bit of a story behind them. And if we're going for the old girly books, we'll go for a bit of Colleen Hoover, but a real mixture. But I think for me, kind of doing things that I spend time doing things that help me kind of be a bit better, really, or make sure that I'm in the right mindset. So days out with friends, families, or get a cheap flight somewhere for a weekend. So
I like it.
things like that.
I like it. So what you're recommending is books. Okay, you mentioned, is it Indistractable? You said who wrote that book?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head, but it's got a yellow cover and it's very good.
Okay, Indistractable then. Okay, it's going to change your life, right? Okay. And the second thing, I love. So I think experiences are the best thing that you can spend your money on, and I love the thing. I've never actually done it recently, but in my head, I always think to myself, you know what? I'll go online. It's Friday. I'll go online, get me a cheap flight to Ryanair. I'll go anywhere, but I just want to get away. I haven't done it yet like that, but I'm going to do it. Now you've
highly recommend it. Yeah.
Emma, thank you so much for your time. And you gave some great pieces of knowledge. So thanks very much. And I know the listeners are going to get a lot out of that. So I appreciate it. Okay. Emma, see you later.
Yeah, bye.